Hello there, it's Jan here at JB Crafts. Welcome to the channel. I am back today with my craft roulette. So we're at the beginning of September. The first of each month I used to do, well, for a while I did a sketch challenge. And last month we introduced Craft Roulette. Now, it won't necessarily be at the beginning of each month, it just fit this particular project. And again, this is not my idea, it's out there on lots of different channels. It's just another way to sort of prompt your crafting. So if you're in a bit of a rut and you're not quite sure what to do, it's a great way to sort of have prompts or thought starters, and there's lots of different ways you can use it. Now, some of the channels out there on YouTube actually do it as a proper roulette where you use a random number selector and you select some numbers and you make a project using those items. Now, I've used it slightly differently for my purpose, and I do use a random number generator, but I sort of narrow it down to giving me ideas and then collating those ideas to put into a project. So let's just move that one out and I'll show you what's actually on here. I've got sort of over, I think we're up to 260 different prompts, and these are things that I've collected over the years. There are colours on there, there are shapes on there, there are techniques on there, there are seasons on there, you know, different types of cardstock, different mediums as far as mixed media is concerned, and all sorts. I've just gone through, and you know, the OCD says that it needed to be in alphabetical order. And this actually works better for finding things if you just want to think, oh, I'm going to make a project, for example, using some lace today. So you can start off, you can find your lace on here, and you can make a note of your number 117, and then you can choose some items that go with that particular one. Like I said, you can use a random number generator and just, for example, pick out, you know, maybe your number generator picked out 103. So use something that's got a hexagon shape on your design and your project today. It may be that it landed on 190. So use your hexagon and make a shaker piece for your project, you know, so lots of different ways. So what I did was use my random number generator, and I think I did about 10 different ones, made a note of them, and then decided what I wanted to do. And I had a rough idea because in my head I wanted to use a stencil and some ink. So I straight away took those off my list. So the stencil was number 215, and the inks were at number 110. So that was sort of the basis of my project, and it is going to be a mixed media one today. So I apologise, it may be a bit longer video, and we're actually going to tackle it differently today because it's mixed media and there's drying times and things involved. I haven't got a finished sample to start the video with today. I normally do have a sample that I've created and show you that and then show you how I've created it, but I'm going to do it slightly different today in that I'm going to show you the process, and then I do have the background ready prepared because of the drying time with some of the mediums that I'm going to use. So I sort of did my number generation and I landed on these particular numbers. I like to narrow it down to maybe 4 or 5, otherwise it can get a little bit overwhelming if you've got too many things that you want to use in your project. The idea is this focuses your mind, and if you look at this, they're very, very obvious ones. You know, you can put ink through a stencil, you can put texture paste through a stencil. It's easy to add some stamping. Numbers are always my thing. I often use numbers on my projects. So first of all, the alphas came out, number 3 came out on the random generator, and I wrote down alphas as in using letters or alphabets and things like that, and I thought, actually no, I prefer the numbers. So I popped this one in here. So these were off my list, and I've narrowed it down to 5 items for the basic design. Through the course of the design and evolving from these suggestions, I have actually included other bits and pieces, which I'll touch on when we get there. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a nice sort of background, and this is actually going to be a home decor piece. I thought this would be nice to be, so I'm going to hang this one in my craft room. So first of all, it was choosing a colour theme. for my inks, and I've gone with my Distress Oxides, which those of you that know me know that these are my favourite inks in the world, always my go-to. I do have the Distress inks. I don't have a full collection of the Distress inks. I've got quite a lot of them, but I am lucky enough to have a full collection with all the new colours of the oxides, and they sit right across the front of my desk, so they are literally within reach if I decide I want to do something with those on one of my projects. So I thought we'd go down the route of green. I wanted it to be a little bit kind of nature themed today, so I've picked out some greens. And again, I bring this in regularly, and again, this is not my idea. I got this idea from Lou Collins on Facebook. She'd got one of these, and she's also got a template. I downloaded it and tweaked it for my use, but basically just swatching out your colours. And it's really handy from the point of view, I thought, right, I want to go with greens, but there are two types of green. You've got that yellow green, and then you have the more of a blue green. I thought, no, I want to go sort of down the yellow green route. So that was this side. And I actually picked out peel paint and forest moss that went nicely together. But I love Twisted Citron. The first time I went through these, I got this combination. I got these three because we've got Shabby Shutters, Peel Paint and Forest Moss there on the colour chart that I know will all go nicely together. But I absolutely love the green in Twisted Citron. So yeah, even though that one's over the page, it is still a very yellowy green. It comes out like this. And obviously you've got, you know, sort of ranges that will fit with it. But I was happy with this combination. So yeah, it's useful to have your inks swatched out so that you can have a play around and test them and see which ones you like together. So let's move the prompt. I will come back to that at a later bit. I need to put it somewhere. I'll pop it up here where I can actually remember where I've put it, because we've got lots of products to come in today. So we're going to start out with the 3 inks and my stencil brush and a stencil. So just before we get going, I'm just going to put my mat on here so that I'm not going to get the desktop too messy, because we've got lots of different products today. And then I'm going to bring my little ink stand just to help with the keeping the inks together, and we're going to work from light to dark. So I'm going to start out with Twisted Citron. Got my brush at the ready, and the stencil that I'm going to start off with is this one. Again, just out of the stash. You can, if I put it on here, you can see it better. Just a random background one, really distressed background, and I've had this in my own stash for a little while. I love this edge as well. If you want to do any sort of stenciling that looks like a torn edge, this works really well, but we're not actually going to use that. We're going to use this bit. So I use this as a guide for my piece of cardstock. I've actually gone very similar size to the stencil for my sort of focal point here, and it measures 8 inches by 5 3/4, so it was a nice size to start with. Excuse me. So what I'm going to do is take a little bit of my masking tape there, my purple tape, and I'm going to put this on the top of the back of the card there. I'm going to apply the stencil to it. So I'm just going to line it up with that top edge and fold that over the top there so that we've got that anchored. And then we're going to start, and we're going to pop the light green through first. So this is a really nice sort of lime green. Absolutely love it. It gives a real nice pop of colour. So collecting colour on that brush, and we are literally going to go through the whole stencil. So I'm just going to apply a bit of pressure and push that ink through my stencil. I want quite a good coverage on this first layer, and then we're going to go a little bit more patchy with the other 2 colours, just adding in a little bit of depth with the darker greens. So this one is going all the way through the stencil. Make sure, as I say, I've got quite a good coverage. I want a good base to work on with this. And then again, just gathering that ink. Tend to go around in circles, and the bristles on the brush are great for this because they do push it into the stencil. If you don't have the brush, you can apply it with a sponge applicator. You can apply it with a piece of foam, something like that. But I do have the brushes, and I do like them for this purpose. Now I just want to be careful near the bottom because I don't want to catch this bit. You can cover it up if you're worried. Just mask it off if you're worried about it. But there we go. So just pushing it through. And the beauty of having that tape at the top, it creates a hinge so you can lift and check and see if you're happy with it, and you can see where there are bits missing in the stencil. That is how it should look. It has got that distressed effect as if you've got elements missing. So we straight away started off with that lovely sort of distress look to it. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to take my cloth. I'm just going to spritz it with a little bit of water just so that it's damp, not wet. And I'm just going to clean some of this ink off here while the stencil's in place, because all it will do is push it into the colour that I've already done. And I just want to get rid of some of that excess before we add and start mixing in with the next green. So yeah, I'm just going to give that a light rub off there like so. And then we're going to pop the light colour to one side, and we're going to bring in the next one. So the mid-tone shade is going to be peeled paint. And because these are all the same sort of green, that yellow green, I only have one brush for this type of green. I do have another green one for the blue greens. So this is literally the same brush. And all I do, if I don't want to contaminate my ink pad, is just take any excess off on my very, very sparse roll of kitchen paper. I have got another one ready in case I need it. But yeah, just take off that excess, and then you're not actually transferring that to the new ink pad. So again, we're going to pick up some of that nice green, that mid-tone green. Now I'm just going to go for certain spaces with this. I don't want to go over the top of it, obviously, but I just want to bring really random. Don't think about it. So I'm going to go in 3 separate spaces with this one. So I'm going to do a little bit up at the top. I'm going to bring a bit down this side, and I'm going to go down sort of this area here. And again, I've gone quite heavy because I want it to cover the layer that we put down. And again, have a check. Now there's only a very, very subtle difference. It's not a massive change. When we add the darker one, it will bring it up a little bit. But yeah, I'm quite happy with that. I'm just going to make sure that we've got a good coverage on those areas. And then again, take off any excess. And we're going to swap this one out now for the dark one, and the dark one is Forest Moss. So these are 3 that go together really, really well. And again, I am just going to take off that excess ink from the top of the stencil. Because the stencil's still in place, the worst this will do is push it through onto the design, which is what we're aiming for. And then again, we're going to pick up some of the dark. And again, I'm going to aim for 3 spots with it. So where this is medium, I'm going to come dark here on this edge. I'm going to overlap a little bit into that mid-tone. I'm going to pop a little bit round here, like so. Just watching that bottom edge again, and maybe a little tiny bit up at the top. I know that my focal point for this design is going to come down here, so I want this to be peeking out from the sides of what we're going to do. So that is the first stage complete. Okie dokes. So let's put that to one side. I'm going to do the same method again. I am just going to take off any excess, and then when I've finished, these all go to the sink and just get rinsed off with some warm soapy water so that they're good to go for the next project. So that's as far as we've got so far, and you can hopefully, I hope you can see on the camera there, that gradient of that lovely lime into the mid-tone with the peeled paint and into the dark forest moss. So that's created our background to get started. So I'm going to remove the stencil, pop that to one side for washing, and then I want to add a little bit more detail. So for starters, we've actually got, let's have a look on here, get my pencil. We've already used, managed to get some green on here, look, I can see it. I've got some ink and I've got some stenciling already. All right, so I've used 2 of my prompts already. So let's just leave that to one side there. Right, not too worried about this because I'm using, I forgot to say at the beginning actually, this is a piece of watercolour paper. So it's quite absorbent because I'm going to put a lot of things on top of it. We're going to use some texture paste, we're going to use some mica stain, we've got more ink to put on it yet. So yeah, there's going to be a lot happening on top of it. So I've gone for my watercolour card, and I can address this bit when I get the water out, because if I just pop some water on here and blot it, it will lift the ink off it. So I'm not too worried about that. So the next thing I want to do is bring in, I'm going to go for the numbers one. And I do have a stencil that's got numbers on. And I think, yeah, this is a Tim Holtz stencil from Stampers Anonymous. I haven't got a number on it, but it's got that lovely, it's got lots of things on it actually. It's got the lost and found, and then lots of different numbers, words. And I just want to use this section here at the top. Okay, and I'm going to bring back in my darkest colour for this. We're going to go with the Forest Moss, and I'm going to bring that in to do the stenciling. So what I want to do is isolate this bit here. So I just want to use the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 here and here. Now lots of ways you can do that. Again, you can tape it up, you can put masking tape over it, you can use post-it. I know some people use the little sticky post-it notes to go over it. What I've got here, and again I saw this on another channel, are a couple of pieces of acetate. And the only reason they've got washi on the end is so that I can see them, because, you know, any of you that use acetate know that when you put it on your desk, it just hides and disappears. So this on the end is just so that I can see them. But what this allows me to do is isolate areas of the stencil. So if I do this on the mat, you'll be able to see I'm going to put one underneath the number and one up here, and then I can just ink this part. So that is literally all I'm going to do. So what we're going to pop here is this one, and I want to bring one of the numbers up to the top here, and I'm going to use the edge of the stencil to line up to make sure that I'm straight. I don't want the numbers to be wonky, so we're going to go for about there. I've still got my tape, so I can stick that bit down, and then I'm going to use these, like I said, and pop one underneath the numbers and one at this side, so that I've isolated that 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You'll be able to see this better when I run the ink through it. So I'm using that darker colour because I want these to stand out. These are going to be part of my background that I'm going to create. And all I'm going to do is hold this in place and push that dark ink through the stencil. Okay, and then when we lift this away, we've literally just got the bit that we wanted there. And then I'm going to do the same again down in this corner here. All right, so I don't have any tape to stick it to. You can stick it down if you wish, but I'm just going to hold mine down. And I'm going to come in, just pop that up there a little bit. I want to come in to about here. So again, I'm going to use the edge of the, let me just make sure you can see what I'm doing there. I'm going to use the edge of the stencil to make sure this is running straight, so that I know that this vertical is going to be straight. I'm going to put my acetates back where they were and isolate that number again, because I've already got the ink on there. I can see where I use them. And because it's only a small area, I'm just going to hold it down with my fingers. If you were doing a larger area, I would recommend using a little bit of low tack tape and sticking this in place. But I am literally just going to ink that number exactly the same as what we did before. Okay, so these just clean up because they are acetate. A little bit of water on these, or even just the cloth, and these clean up so that you can reuse them over and over again. I always keep these with my stencil folder so that I've got them to go to if I need them. I'm just going to pop them under there for now. Stencil again, pop it with, I'm going to put it with the other one so that I can wash all these when I've finished. And we've got a little bit of added interest, and we've also started ticking off our numbers from the prompt. Now I am going to add some more numbers with some stamping as well, but we're going to come back to that in a second. So what I want to do now is add some detail. I've got my stamping element to tick off here, and I'm going to add some detail with some stamps out of my stash. So whatever you've got handy. As I say, I knew I wanted sort of a theme with the the main focal point is going to be sort of nature based, but I'm going to do a little bit of stamping on here to add some more interest. So I had a look through the old stash, see what I'd got, and I've pulled some stamps out that I want to use. So first of all, we're going to use this little bit of, it's like cracked glass. It's out of a set that's got a multiple sets of stamps in, but I'm going to use this one to add a little bit of random detail. So I'm going to bring in another colour, but I want it to be very, very neutral. So I'm going to go for pumice stone. It's a very, very light sort of brown grey, and it's not going to detract from the green. So we're going to use this one to stamp with, and I'm going to stamp with the oxides. I often do. Pick this up on my stamp. If your stamp's a new stamp, it's often worth having a test run just to see what it stamps like, how much pressure you need. But I have used this one, so I know how it's going to work. Got a gap here that's got these little elements in that this one, if I have a look at those details, you can see how it's just going to fit in the edge there. And I'm not worried if this doesn't stamp out perfectly. Remember, we were going for that distressed effect. But you've just got that little bit of detail, all right? And again, even though I've only got this in 2s, I do more than often than not work in clusters of 3. Now, the reason I've gone for 2 here is because my main cluster is going to be the 3rd. So we're going to do a little bit of stamping here to create a cluster, stamping here to create a cluster, and then the 3rd bit will be the focal point. So again, let's ink this up, and I am going to bring it over to the other side. So we're going to go from here to here. I've got some little gaps at this side, so just have a look where that stamp sort of nestles in, and we're going to bring it down this side, and you can see how that neutral tone sort of complements the green, but it doesn't overtake it. This is all background work. We're going to bring a focal point that's going to be you know, more obvious to the front. And then because we've gone 1, 2, it's obvious to me that this last one's going to come down here. So again, just turning it slightly so that we've got a slightly different angle, and I'm going to bring it off the page. Now you can see all 3 of these I've stamped off the edge of the page. So the stenciling was on the page. It was all contained within the page. But these have now gone off the edge of the page to start and make it look like it's come from a bigger design. So my wet wipes have just got to the bottom of the pack, and they're not so wet at the minute, so I'll just give it a spritz and then get rid of that particular stamp. We've finished with that one. Come along, there we go. So put that one back. I'm going to give the desk a little wipe because I did overstamp and we've got a bit on there. And then the next one we're going to bring in is just a bit of texture. So this again, this is from a different stamp set, and it's just a series of dots, which again you'll be able to see when I stamp them out. So I'm going to stay with the same colour for now, and I'm going to build on those 2 clusters, so this one and this one. So what I want to do is come under the numbers now. So I'm going to turn that round. I think it's got a better edge there to fit round the numbers, and it just sort of nestles underneath those numbers. Very, very faint again. It's nothing definite. If I pick that up, you can see it's almost like a splatter type design. And then I'm going to create the same thing here. So we're going to go in the ink again, and I'm going to come under this one. So I want these 2 clusters to look very, very similar. And again, I haven't come off the edge of the page. The clusters are part of the design. So we've got a little bit in there. Disappears into the stencil. That's exactly what I want it to do. So just get rid of that excess ink off here, because I am very heavy-handed where the ink is concerned. And then the final one is from the same set as the cracked glass, and this is just a little kind of, it almost looks like a bolt of lightning, could be used in lots of ways. And I'm now going to bring in my hickory smoke, which is actually a grey, but it's a brown grey, so I find it works really well with the pumice stone. And again, if you look back to your chart, your swatch, we've got pumice stone and hickory smoke in the same sort of blends. little bit of lost shadow in the centre, which works nicely with this one as well, but that is a very pale one. So I've gone for this nice brown grey to complement the pumice stone. And what we're going to do with this one is do that little tiny bit of lightning bolt here. So it's almost, it could be a tree branch, could be a little lightning bolt. And what I'm going to do is bring this one again. I'm going to work on that vertical, and I want to just join these three together like this. So we've got the number, the sort of distressed area, and then that little sort of branch, or as I say, it looks great done on a sky for lightning. And these are all stamps I've had for quite a while now, so I'm not sure. Some of them are not even marked at what the names are of them. I've just accumulated them over the years, either from craft fairs, or I buy a lot of my stuff off Amazon. I can have it delivered to the house, and I can do my craft shopping without even, leaving the house. More time for crafting. So again, we've now got that cluster building up with the same design. So I'm going to pop that one to one side. And then we're going to come down to some smaller stamping then. So I want to add some other elements in there. I'm going to take this away, and we're going to start and bring in a slightly darker ink now. So I'm going to bring in my VersaFine Clair, which is a nice brown pigment ink. So I just need to be careful not to smudge this one because it takes a little bit longer to dry. And we're going to add some extra detail with some words and numbers. So again, I've got some of the product out that I knew that I could reference for you. And we've got this was the set that the little, let me just turn that over, that little distress stamp was from. It's just got loads of different textures. I use this one quite a lot as well, and it's got a nice splatter in there. So again, as I said, I think that one's from Amazon. And then I've also got, this is an old set from Creative Expressions. It's called Nature Finds by Sam Poole. And again, I'm going to use some of the wording. I've got the field notes and the Nature Finds. I thought that went nicely with the, the theme. We're going to use that. And then I've got one of my Tim Holtz. I've got my eccentric. Again, this is a go-to set, and I've taken a couple of the numbers elements. Oh, there's this little stars in here that I love. So those are a couple of the sets that we're going to use just for adding extra detail. Got them ready on my block. I don't need them all on the block at the same time, so let's just take off that one and that one so that we can get the other bits in place. So to start off with, I'm going to use the number one from the Tim Holtz set. And what I do want is a little bit of scrap card, which there must be hanging around here, and it is a little bit. Because this is quite a dark brown, I actually want to stamp this off. So I don't want to go really dark and this all of a sudden come to the front of the design. So what we're going to do is ink it up very, very lightly, stamp it off, and then we're going to go along that same part here, and I'm just going to bring in some light pressure and add this in there. So again, ink it up, a light stamp off, and then I'm going to bring it and do the same at this side. Okay, so we're creating that one horizontal and one vertical. So again, put all my stamps away when I've finished. I'm just collecting them on another block over here. We have got the little stars. I love these. They're such a simple little stamp set from that Tim Holtz Stampers Anonymous set, but they just fill in so many different gaps. And again, I'm going to ink them up. I'm going to stamp them off lightly. Wasn't a very good one, Jan. Yeah, and then we're going to bring these in as well. So I'm just going to come a little bit further in and add those on there. Can you see the difference in the colour? So this is really, really quite dark brown. And as I say, at that depth, they would suddenly become part of the forefront, and I don't want them to be. I want them to be part of the background. So we're going to do the same again. We're going to stamp them off slightly, and then I'm going to finish this top piece up here and put 3 of them. So we've created our 2 clusters here that are going to be linked together with our main element. So the last thing that I want to do on here is those wording. And I've got one that says Field Notes. And as I say, these are from that Creative Expressions set. And again, it's just adding a bit more interest to these clusters. And I'm going to go right over the top of the actual number, but I am going to do the same. I'm going to stamp it off just lightly. Make sure that it's stamping okay. Yeah, that's actually not too bad. With it being an acrylic stamp, I'm going to leave it. I'm not going to do the stamp off. And again, I'm just going to take this over the number. And you can see that with the depth of the green here, this is actually not too dark. And then the other one said Nature Finds. And again, we're going to bring that one in on the block. And I'm going to bring that one up to that top edge. And again, I find it easier to have my stamp vertical rather than trying to stamp it like this. So I've turned my cardstock to help with that. And again, I'm going to stamp through the numbers that we did with the stencil. All right, so again, just building up those clusters. And again, it doesn't have to be the same stamps as what I've used. If you want to try this, have a look through that stash. I am always advocating using the old stash. You know, have a look through there, see what you've got and utilize it. You know, if you want a different theme, absolutely perfect. So we're going to go with a little bit of extra that wasn't on the list. Let me just bring my list back in because we have now ticked off some stamping. Still got the texture paste to use. I have got my texture paste here. The ready. This is a really old pot again. It was by a company called Imagination Crafts. I don't think they even trade anymore, but it's a really nice texture paste and there's nothing wrong with it. So yeah, I'm going to keep using it. I don't need to buy a new one just because the company doesn't exist. So what we're going to do then is we're going to have a look. First of all, before I do the texture paste, I've got all this background, and my focal point is going to be a vertical element here. Okay, we're going to use a tag and build it up with some foliage to create that nature theme. Now, again, those of you that watch me regularly know that I'm always on about when I'm working vertically, I like to do the horizontal. Hence, the cluster here that's horizontal and the one that's vertical rather than doing it the same way at the bottom. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring in some washi, and this is just a random script and it is green. So I just had a look through the old box. I've got way too much washi tape and thought, right, we will just add a little bit of this to go across the design, and again it will disappear into the background eventually. So all I'm going to do is pop this across like so from one side to the other, just tack it to my mat, and then we'll have the ruler just to make sure that it's running pretty straight. Just excuse my head, I just want to make sure, yeah, that's fine. Make sure that it's running nice and straight across that horizontal. Tear that off, and then I'm just going to tuck this round the back because this will be sealed down when we come to do the background. So again, you can see it all disappears now. This is all a background, and I know it takes time, but this is what I love about kind of mixed media projects. Now, at the moment, we've only used ink, so we're not really bringing in that mixed media to any extent, but I am now going to add the structure paste, all right? And we're going to add a little bit of wording. So let me just pop that to one side, and I'm going to do that with another stencil. And again, it's just a random script. I can't read it. It's probably in a foreign language. Out of the old stash again, and we're going to apply this in a couple of places on the tag. So let's take that off. I'm going to grab my spatula. It's lovely and creamy, this stuff. And as I say, I've got quite a bit of it left, so I thought I'm not going to waste it. So what I want to do is I'm going to come down this right-hand side, and I'm going to start just underneath where I've stamped here. And the way that this is designed, I've got that natural shaping here on this edge. So I'm just going to tuck it round there, bring it over about a couple of inches. Again, make sure it's running straight. And then we're actually going to hold this down and pop some of the paste through here. Like so. So I'm going to take off the excess. Don't want to come too far down. I am coming just over the washi tape, which is why I put that on first. And then lift that up, and we'll show you that in a close-up in a second. Okay, and then I'm just going to make sure that there's not any surplus on here. Take off that excess because I want to use the other side now to come down this side. So we're going to echo one side and the other. So first thing I'm going to do is just lift that. I tend to run my finger down here just to get any little bits that have come off the edge. And I am going to move this so that I don't end up in a mess, because I usually forget and end up putting the card in it. And try and keep reasonably clean today on video. So yeah, remember not to touch that bit now. And then we're going to bring the other side of it. And we're going to come, I'm just going to pop my piece of this under here in case there's any texture paste on that other side. And then I'm going to bring it down to the bottom. I'm sort of going to start just under that stamped piece again here. Again, making sure it's running straight. We're going to take that little bit of paste back that we popped in, and then I'm just going to run this through this side of the stencil. Try not to go over the edge. I just want the lettering. And again, I'm not worried if I don't get it all perfect. You know, it is a distressed background. Scrape off any excess. That's going to go back in my pot for using on another time. And then lift up your stencil, and we've got that lovely text underneath there, and I will hold you that up in a second. Now these need to go straight in water so that the texture paste doesn't dry on them. So what I'm going to do is just pop it in some wet paper towel for a second until I've finished the video, and then I can go and wash it. So I am going to spritz some of my paper towel. We'll do one thing at once, Jan. Let's move this out of the way. And I'm going to bring it down here again and just pop that to one side for a second. We're getting in a mess. I knew I'd end up in a mess. It's inevitable with this kind of crafting. All right, that's why I put the mat down, to try and protect the desk. Clean that one off. So again, if you're using texture paste, you can get it off if it dries. You know, you have to sort of peel it off or do it with a blade. This is why I prefer to actually do it straight away. But all I'm going to do with this one is pop it on here, pop some water on the top, and then just give it a wipe until I can get to the sink. All right, so we're just going to take that off with another piece of wipe there, push it through onto that piece underneath, and then once I get this to the sink later, it'll be good to go again. Got a great piece there as well. Could have done that onto a piece of spare cardstock. So yeah, that's got the majority of it off, and I can wash that when I've finished. So I'm going to pop that to one side, get rid of that bit, and we're still reasonably clean. Pop that in there, get the old hands as clean as I can with that. Covered in texture paste now. Do you know, I don't know about you guys, it's like I managed to stay clean, and then most of the mess comes out of this that you've cleaned up with. The actual texture paste is in the white that I'm trying to clean myself with. So let's put that in there. So we've finished with that one. I can put the spritz away for now. We've finished with the inks for now. Let's get all tidied up. And I think we're just about good to start with the top section. So I'm going to move this out of the way now. I've done all the messy stuff. That can go down there. This is where we've got to. This is the one I've just been working on with the tape. And again, I hope you can just see. Got a little bit of the texture here at this side. And it's just a touch. And then we've got it echoing it at this side here. So I'm going to leave that one to dry. And this is the one that I prepared before I started the tutorial. So I have got this done and dry. So you can see the ink's dried back a little bit. It's not quite as bold. We've got the washi in. I've done the background and the clusters, and I've got the texture paste on there. The only thing that I've added to this is a little bit of splatter so that that could dry as well. And I've done that with my, not that one, that was the one I was using yesterday, my mica stain in Crooked Broomstick. So these are Tim Holtz products again. Really, really nice for spritzing and covering your papers or cardstock. But I just put some out on my mat and used my fan brush just to give it a good old splatter so that we've got a little bit more interest in there again. So I'm going to put that one away so that it can stay to dry. And then this one, as I say, it's just got that little tiny bit of shimmer. It's not easy to pick up on the camera. I can see it here. We've got the texture paste going on. We've got that stenciling with the 3 different shades of the ink. And that's what we're actually going to work with. And I've got some tape on the back of this ready. So let's have a look at our list again. We've actually used the texture paste now. So the 5 prompts that I had to start with, I've actually used. Now, again, by the end of it, we're going to add some more things that appear on my roulette list, but they were just incidental as I started designing the top part of the project. So what we're going to do then is bring in some extra bits and pieces. So the first thing I wanted was a tag shape. And again, this is a tag from my collection that I've got, and it was a piece of plain paper, and I've just stamped some random background text. This was another Tim Holtz stamp, and cut it out. It's got a nice stitched edge, popped an eyelet in the top, and I've got some foam tape on the back, and this is going to be that vertical. I said we were going to have this sort of coming down to the left from the numbers. We've got that horizontal with the washi tape. That's going to be the beginning of my focal point. So I'm not going to stick it down just yet because I want to tuck some bits and pieces underneath it. Then I knew I wanted some florals, and again we've gone very Mr. Holtz today. I have both of these which I use and use and use. I've had them years and they come out regularly, and I've used the branch. I've cut this out as some really dark brown because I wanted some sort of background detail. So that's this long one here, and again I've got the dies out here. Let's just show you the dies. So that was my tag die. This is the branch out of that set. You can see it's a really nice long piece which you can cut down if you want to. Excuse me. Oh dear. So I've cut 2 of those for my background. So let's pop these to one side. And then I've also used the leafy part here as well. And we've got the leaf done in some green. They're all being very friendly at the minute. So they are larger than what they look on the packet. You can see the die here again. There's this one. These are scraps out of my bag. I think some of you will have seen before that I have an addiction to linen cardstock. And this is my bag of scraps. Yes, they're in colour order, but I always keep the green scraps because they're great for doing foliage. But then I've got lots of other bits and pieces. Always go to this bag first if I'm die cutting elements like this, rather than cutting into a new piece of card. And then the second one, I used the flower branch here. So I wanted this one, and that cuts out, again, larger than the ones on the front. So that's this one here. And I've got this, and again this is cut out of a piece of scrap paper. It's got a little tiny bit of design on it, and these have all been inked with some vintage photo ink. So we've got those 3 elements as part of that top section. The tag, it had that green tinge to it, so I've gone with old paper, and I have used my inks for these rather than the oxides, purely because I get a more concentrated finish. The oxides dry much lighter. So yeah, I've kept the green on the tag, and then these ones, not the brown obviously, but these 2 have got the vintage photo just to give them a bit of definition. So that was those dies, and pop those to one side. And then I've also got in my stash this lovely chain link. I've got there are 3 dies in this set, and I love this. So I've cut this again out of some neutral cardstock, and this is actually going to go across the design. So we're actually going to pop this across here underneath, again to do that horizontal and the vertical. And then the last die that I've got on here is just again a really old one. Go through the stash, see what you've got. This has got loads of book plates on, and it's an old X-cut die. Excuse me. It was called Tags and Book Plates. And again, it's a go-to. I reach for it often. I love these ones at the top here. You can see some of them are still not cleaned out properly. So I've used this one off here and created that little book plate. All right. This is going to breach the little collection of foliage that we've got. I've popped some brads in each side. This is going to come across here eventually. So that was that one. We can pop that to one side. So what we're going to do then is we're going to build up a nice collection of those sprigs on this side. But before that, I want to add some little bits just to sort of add to that cluster. Just excuse me 1 second. Even though I've taken an antihistamine this morning, I still seem to be sneezing. Okay, so what else have I got in my little box then? We have got, I'll come back to the sentiments. I've got some of my little snippets. These are Stampers Anonymous again. And these have been stamped out in that same brown ink as what we used here. One of them's been coloured with the vintage photo. And a couple of them have been coloured with the green ink so that everything corresponds nicely. So we're going to use those. I've also got some metal elements, and these again are out of my stash. I've got a little tub that's got all sorts of metal pieces in. That lovely sort of burnished bronze colour. I've got a heart. Very random. There wasn't another heart on here, but I want to put this. It was shouting out to me to go up here in the middle of that little bit of cracked glass. I don't know why. So yeah, here we go. I've also got, I make these. I saw these on a video. And these are little not book rings, they're jump rings. And again, I ordered a pack off Amazon, and all you do is, if you've got some scraps of paper left over, so for example, this was what I cut my flower stem. You can just see the bit here where it's come out of here. So the bit that's left, all you're going to do is pop your jump rings on top. Now I've actually stamped some letters in here, but you don't have to. They can be plain. It could be a star in there. It could be if you've got a more patterned piece of paper, for example, you could highlight, you know, something that's on the paper. But you put them on here, and then you just fill them with one of your accent glazes. So glossy accents, I think Tonic do one. This is a Spectrum Noir one, glossy highlights. They all go on milky, but then they dry clear. So you get like this little tiny metal embellishment, and I don't know whether the camera's picking up the fact that it's got that like glassy finish inside it. And again, this is just really random, but we are going to use that on here. It's all linking the metal together. We've got the metal brads, the metal jump ring, and the metal piece up here. I've also got these really, really dinky, tiny little metal buttons. So I thought we'd pop some of those on as well. I'll come back to the twine in a second. So yeah, we're going to start and build this up. So let's pop the metal bits to one side for a bit. We don't need that piece. We're actually going to bring in some of the background pieces. So I'm going to bring in my acrylic glue to pop these down. And the first thing I'm going to do is pop this one down, because that is going to go in the background, and I know there's nothing going underneath that. So again, the tweezers come in really handy. And all I'm going to do is pop glue, because this is going over the ink, the texture paste, the washi tape. The acrylic glue comes in really handy for this. It will stick most things together. So just round there. And then what I want to do is run this in parallel with the washi tape. So let's move these out of the way for a second. I'm going to position this roughly where I want it to go, which is about there. And then I want this to pop out at either side. So again, I'm going to hover over the top where I want it to go, move that, and then use that text to get that sort of pretty much straight, and pop that one down first. Then we can use this, put this back as a guide here. And then I want to add some of these pieces underneath, just to link it all together. And as I say, these are the little curator snippets from Stampers Anonymous. I love these. I've got a little bowl of them that I dig into frequently. And again, I want to slot these under here. So that's where it's going to go. I want them to be poking out of the side like that. So again, just one in the background. This one's going to come towards the bottom. So again, using that as my guide, like so. I want this one to pop out from underneath down here, like so. And again, I'm just sort of eyeballing whether it's straight. And then I've got the green again. So again, that working in sets of 3, you know, it's a thing within crafting, and it's something that's not usually far away from my thoughts when I'm building a cluster like this. This one I'm going to bring out slightly and overlap here, like so. So I'm happy with those, and I think that's all that's going underneath there. So we can actually pop our tag in place now. So I've got a little bit of foam on the back of here just to raise this front element. So we will take away, you know, I've had to cut all my nails back because I had a run-in with the gate the other day and actually split one of my nails so badly that I've had to cut it all the way down. And because again we're going on to all those different textures, I am going to pop a little bit of wet glue on the back of here, and it's not because I don't trust the tape. The wet glue seeps into the fibres of the card and you get a really good stick, especially with this being a home decor piece that I'm going to have on the wall. I don't want bits falling off it in due course. So again, I'm going to bring that along here, and I'm just going to eyeball. I'm quite happy with that positioning, and then give that a press down. Then we're actually going to start and build these on the back of it. So I want these to go one high up, that's going to come up into this cluster, and then the other one's going to come a little bit lower down so that it comes off the bottom of the tag, like so. Okay, then we're going to have the leaf in the middle, well, sort of just slightly to the left, and then we're going to have the flowers slightly to the right. So I want to lay all those down with a bit of glue. So I only need to glue up to about there. So again, the tweezers are really handy for using as a marker, and I'm going to use that acrylic glue again. There's not an awful lot of element to stick down here, but we are going to secure it over the top with something else as well. So that one is going to go sticking up sort of to that left hand side and up through the, I'm going to go right through the middle of that wording so that it doesn't cover it up. And that one's going to go there. So it's just off the edge, like so. And then this one, I'm going to bring slightly further down. So I don't need to glue the bottom bit of this. We're just going to go on those little leaves and take that right up. And that top one was sticking off, so I don't need anything up at the top. And this one's going to go out the other way, like so. Give that a good press. I've got a little scrap of my wax paper left that I can apply a bit of pressure on here so that we've got those stuck down. And then I want to put the green leaf just over to the left. So again, we will grab it with, majority of that's going to be over the tag. So again, we can add little dots of glue on here. If I'm using heavier embellishments, I would use my hot glue to add these onto a home decor piece, again just for that longevity, so that you know everything's going to stick and stay in place. So again, this is just going to come slightly to the left, but I want you to be able to see the contrast against that tag in the background. So again, give that one a press down, and then the flower one is going to come more over to this side, like so. So all the stems are focused in the middle as if they're a spray. So if you've sort of gathered them as a spray there. And I have double cut all my embellishments. So the back of them, they're either a double layer, the green one was a double layer of green. The brown ones were a double layer of the brown cardstock. This one was a piece of the pattern paper, and then I've just got some scrap card on the back of it just to give them a bit of strength. Again, because it's going to be home decor, it's going to be out and visible. So I wanted to make sure that it was sturdy. And again, apply a bit of pressure with the wax paper there. Just make sure that it's made contact with the tag, and then the glue will do its own thing. It will stop, it will cure and stick everything down. Okay, now my nose is running again. I don't know what's going off this morning. I'm beginning to wonder whether I did have my antihistamine. I start to doubt myself. Right, and then we're going to bring this one back in here, and I'm going to bridge this across now so that it looks as if all the stems are fastened together here. So I think, I didn't work out how I was going to put this one on because there's a little bit of gap. So I think what we'll do is just use some tiny bits of foam under the edge. So I'm going to snip one of these in half because they're only little foam dots. And I think what we'll do is pop a little bit of that under each of those edges. You can see where I've got the brads through the back there. And that will span across there then. And I'm also going to use some glue on it as well. So let's just take the backers off. You had to introduce the foam pads, Jan, didn't you? Oh, we're okay. And again, if this is your first time on the channel, first of all, welcome. Second of all, Jan has a love-hate relationship with the foam pads. Sometimes they love me, sometimes they hate me, and they don't release their backers for me. Now, I am going to put a little bit of glue under here. It may make contact with this, it may not, but it's not going to hurt. It will dry anyway. And then I want to sort of include this top corner so that we've got that cluster effect going on again here. So I'm going to bring this low enough down that it actually encompasses this piece that we popped underneath. I'm going to hold that for a second because I want that glue to cure, and I have got a spare pair of tweezers, so we could actually give it a helping hand with that for a second, and then I can just hold this side. While I'm doing that, I've actually popped a hole in here already with my piercing tool, my craft pick, and I'm going to pop the little heart in there before we stick this onto a background. As I say, it's very random, this. There isn't any hearts anywhere else, and it does worry me slightly that there aren't any hearts anywhere else, but I just like the metal work. So yeah, it's creative, artist creative design, and I like it in there, and it links with the other metal, so we're okay. I'm okay with that. And then I thought the little jump ring that we've got is going to go and link, I think, these pieces together here. So we've got the washi, the chain link, and then we're going to put that one to link those three together. So things are not randomly just placed all over the card in different places. I know this is a bit random, but humour me. I did like that bit. I might add some more hearts. I don't know. I'll see. Probably way too much glue on there, Jan. We're going a bit crazy with that one. So yeah, I'm going to pop this here to link those three items together, so it's not just randomly floating around in the midst of the design. Can you see how that background stuff is now being pushed to the background? And then the little buttons I wanted to do. Now then, let me bring the sentiments in, because the buttons went round the sentiments. I laid all this out dry so that I got an idea where it wanted to go. So I'm going to move those and see if they'll reach. Ooh, it's not quite long enough to reach up that side, Jan. I think we're okay with that. I think it's stuck nicely, actually. Yep. So for my sentiment then, I've got, because it's going to be home decor, I've got create memories, and they, again, this is from Amazon. It's got loads and loads. It's got some you know, sort of everyday sentiments, with love, good luck, thinking of you, that kind of thing, but it's got some really nice, you've got dream on here, travel, fun, hugs. So yeah, you can, I like this one, and I like the shape of it as well. So I've just stamped these out with that brown ink again. So it's the same ink that we used in the background, again, linking it all together. I'm picking out this dark brown from the branches. I wanted to link that together. So I've stamped them out in the pigment ink. And I don't think it's show up on the camera, but I have actually popped clear embossing powder over the top of them so that they are just a little bit shiny. There's a little bit of raised area on there. As I said, I don't think it's picking it up on the camera. But what we're going to do with these, we're going to have one of them up here, and we're going to have the other one here, like so. Again, linking these elements together. So that one, we've got, oh, I'd already got the foam pads out. Are we having a good day? Yep, those are coming off. And again, for the same reason as I did with the tape, I want this wet glue to seep into my cardstock and give it a really good bond. So this one, I want to have above the chain link. And again, make sure it's running straight. And then this one, I'll take the backers off again. There's going to be one that objects, you can bet your life. Ooh, 1, 2. Here we go. There we are. We did it. I always have a sigh of relief when they come off. So again, that wet glue, nice big blob of that so that it soaks into the card as it's drying. And again, these have got that distressed edge as well. You can see this is not where I've missed my stamping. They are actually like that. You can see the design of the stamps have got those sort of distressed edges. So it all links together with this being a nice distressed piece. And again, I'm going to bring this one and join that washi and the number together. Bring that one out to the side slightly like so. And then I always find I can get things looking straighter if I lift it up, rather than it'd be right over the top of it, which is not great for the camera point of view, but yeah, like that. And then now I've got that in place, I can decide I wanted 2 of these buttons down here. They're just so dinky. And then this one is going to go and nestle again 1, 2, 3 elements up here. So using my little wax one there, I'm going to put a blob of glue under there, and I want the little holes to be horizontal. And then we're going to take that up, pop some there, and then once these have got stuck down, I will give them a tweak so that they're running in the right direction. So we want to make sure that they are as straight as they can be. As I say, I want the little holes to run straight. I think we're okay like that. So that's that bit. I'm happy with that. And then the twine, I left the twine well the end because originally I did this bit. I've got a couple, this is actually hemp cord, and I like it because it's a bit lighter, bit thinner, lighter weight than the twine. But that was the one I did first on a double bow to go on here, and it kind of disappeared into the background. As much as I like it and I like that it's a thinner weight, I think the whole design could take something a bit heavier. So this one is just a heavier weight twine that I have on a spool, and because it's heavier weight, I've just created a single bow, and to be honest, I think that one is more visible. So I'll keep this for another project, I don't throw it away, and I think this one is actually going to work better. So I'm going to put in the center here a decent blob of the glue. I wonder, I might leave that and do that at the end because I've got to stick this piece down. So let me just take that off for a second, and we'll put that back on when I've put it onto the background. Otherwise it's going to fall off when we put it on the background. So I'm pretty much happy with this as a finished piece, and then we need to back it now. So what I wanted to do was create like a matte layer so that I've got something that's a decent sized piece to go on the wall. Now if you want to leave it like this and you want to make this into a card for someone, then obviously you could just create a card blank for it to sit on. What I've done is actually create a whole background for this, and I've done this in advance because it is literally just matting and layering. So I've used this as my guideline to start, which was 8 inches by 5 3/4. I've pulled out some really dark brown card, which is what these were cut from parts of the scrap. So this is the dark brown to link that in. I've put a very, very thin white layer to pick up the white watercolour card, and then I've gone for that lovely green, which is the same as what we've got here. So it's all linked together, and then I was going to back it onto craft card to bring in the other bit here. Didn't plan on this showing, it was just for strength. But when I laid it down on here, I laid the green piece down onto the craft card, and I'd sort of wiggling it into place. I've used my all-purpose glue to make sure you can hear how stiff and sturdy that is. Apologies, that was a bit loud, wasn't it? Got a bit giddy there. And I left this little edge wriggling, and I thought, actually, I quite like that tiny, tiny little edge. I mean, it's about a 1/16 of an inch of the craft card just added to the whole frame. So we've got the background, we've got a skinny white one, a wider, I think there's about 3/4 of an inch of the, what did I do with my ruler? There it is. think it's about 3/4 of an inch, 5/8 of an inch of the green showing. So 3/4 in total with the bit of craft card that's popping out. And then this is going to go on top of here. So we've got those staggered borders. And this is actually going to stick on top of here. Okay. And that's actually going to be my piece for the wall. I'm really, really pleased with this. So I've popped tape on the back of here to get us started, just to help it lay flat. So we're actually going to take one of those pieces off in total. And then I am going to use my wet glue again. In fact, I'm going to take all the tape off this time because that background is quite sturdy. We want to do this in one go. So we'll take all the backing off. And again, just so that I've got a bit of wiggle room this time, I am going to continue with some bits of that wet glue. I'm going to bring it right across the top because the tape only goes vertically. And again, I am going overboard with the glue. I wouldn't normally necessarily put this much on, but because this is going to be home decor, and especially if I pop it in my conservatory, which is where I'm doing my crafting, the temperatures do vary tremendously in here. So when it's hot, it affects the adhesive. So now's the bit where I've got to try and get it on here straight. I am going to lift it up because I find it easier to go that way. And the glue will allow me that little tiny bit of wiggle room. And I want to make sure that this gets right in position. Nope, didn't quite get there. So yeah, the glue allows me to take it on and off, look. And again, I am going to have a look at this from the top, I think. I'm going to place it roughly where I think it wants to go. Oh, I think we made it. Yep, years of putting mats and layers together. I can usually see roughly where it wants to go. And then apply some pressure to the whole thing. I know I've got tape running up and down those verticals. And then we've got the glue as well in there. So once that's dry, we should have a really good bond in there. Okay. And then we can pop this one on now because I didn't want to be messing about trying to stick that down with this sort of not quite dry. So I'm going to put glue underneath. I'm going to pop that onto there. And again, because this is mixed media and it's going to go on the wall, I'm going to put a little tiny bit of glue on the top of the knot. And again, this dries clear. So it means that once that glue's dry, the knot's going to not come undone. The knot isn't going to come undone, however you want to phrase it. So yeah, that will dry. Pop the lid on there. And I think I'm just going to sort of tap that on there. As I say, it will dry clear, so I'm not too worried about that. And again, I think while it's, I don't know whether they're going to reach now. What did I do with my other set of tweezers? Yeah, that's not going to reach across there now. So I'm just going to have to rely on the glue doing its job and actually sticking that down in place. So yeah, just be patient with it. And once that glue's adhered, I know it will stick the twine in place. I'm just going to give it a press down. Yeah, and I just need to wait and stop messing with that now for it to dry. So when I take the photos, hopefully that will be dry and you can see what it looks like. May trim the edges of that. I'm going to wait while it's dry and see that. So that's my piece. I'm not sure yet whether I want to add some, I might add twine behind it to hang it. So for example, just use some tape behind it and pop like a, you know, a piece here behind it to hang it with, like so, like that. I've not decided yet. As I say, I've got the house wall in front of me that the conservatory's built onto, and I've got some bits and pieces up there, so I'm visioning it up on there. But yeah, that's the project. And let's go back to the original Craft Roulette. And we ticked these off as we went. We actually had the inks in the background. We've got the numbers through the stenciling and the stamping. We've got lots of stamping going on there with the background elements. We used the stencil with the ink and we ran some texture paste through there. So we've got that little bit of texture. So true mixed media. That bit's going to bug me because it's not sticking properly. And then as well as that, if I bring my sheets back in, if I can remember where I put them, there they are. Like I said, when I got to the end, I realised that I had used other bits off here. So yeah, the idea of this being a thought starter works really well, because also on my list, I used a tag, which is on my sheet. I used splatter, which is on the sheet for the mica stain. I used washi, which is a suggestion on the sheet, and I used some twine, which is a suggestion. Okay, so yeah, you could bring in other elements as you go along. The foliage is probably, I've not written that down actually, I bet I've got foliage on there. Yep, foliage, so the sprays. I've hit the die cuts, because we die cut the floral, the foliage elements. So yeah, lots and lots of bits of it come together when you've got those points here to just give you a thought starter. And the numbers at the top of here were the finished project. So just for those of you that are interested, it measures 10 inches in height and 7¾ inches in width. So the whole thing now probably would be a bit big for a card, unless you were making one that you wanted to hand round. I know sometimes if you work in quite a large place and you have someone leaving and lots of people sign the card, you can make these really large ones and make the envelopes. But I'd deliberately gone this big because, as I say, I know I want to put this on my wall. So that's my finished design for today. I hope you've enjoyed it. I know it was a slightly longer tutorial today, but I know a lot of you've asked about the mixed media, and I do enjoy doing it. It is just, it does take longer. So feel free, you know, if you want to rewatch this and flip through it and pause it in places where you want to check if you're going to have a go at something like this, it's going to be there for you to see now. So thank you. If you've stayed with me right to the end of the video, thank you. I appreciate that, and I'd love to hear the comments. I do read the comments. I do reply to your comments now, so it would be interesting to see what people think and whether you're going to have a go at it yourself. So I'm going to leave it there for today. I'm going to let the twine dry and not mess about with it before I take a photo, and I will be back very shortly with another tutorial for you guys. So enjoy whatever you're doing today, and I'll see you all soon. Bye bye now.